Hi, today I'm going to talk about the flow monitoring feature in OVS. Flow monitoring actually exists today as a Nicira extension in OVS, and this was added in the Openflow spec 1.4, and we are in the process of integrating it in OVS. So in an Openflow architecture, we have an Openflow switch, which connects to one or more controller. The controller can program flows into one of the flow table using a flow mod message. The flow mod message has match fields against which the packet lookup happens. And if a match is found in a flow entry, the instructions are applied to that packet. Now, in a typically complex deployment, you could have many flows programmed in many flow tables and programmed possibly by many controllers. So it's good to have a feature which keeps track of what's happening in these flow tables. So we have flow monitor. So what is flow monitor? Flow monitor allows a controller to keep track of changes happening to the flow table. So it does so by pushing monitors which act as agents in an Openflow switch, which keeps track of any changes in the flow tables and sends event back to the controller. Now, these monitors can be programmed to track all changes that is happening in an Openflow switch, or it could be selective with flags like initial, which will say, okay, just send me the current set of flows that you have, or with flags like add, delete, modify, which will send triggers to the controller for any subsequent add, delete, or modify of flow in the flow tables. These monitors can also be programmed to track changes which is happening to one particular table. Now, how are these monitors programmed in an OVS? So let's say in this case, the controller sends a flow monitor request, and here we see that it's trying to program 3 monitors, M1, M2, and M3 in OVS. Each of these monitors can be programmed to monitor a subset of flow entry in OVS. Now let's say at this point there are 100 flows in OVS, and each of these 100 flows matches one of the match criteria in the flow monitors. So, and also the monitors have their initial flag set. In this case, a flow monitor response will be generated back to the controller with the event initial, and it will have 100 flow updates corresponding to the 100 flows that OVS has. Also, as a result of this message, these 3 monitors are now kind of installed on OVS, and they will now keep track of any changes that's happening in the OVS from this point onwards. Now, let's say after some time, the same controller or a different controller tries to add a flow to OVS, and that flow request matches the criteria of any one of the flow monitors. OVS is going to generate an async message back to the controller with the event added. And now this will keep on happening as long as these monitors are installed in OVS. How do we test it in OVS? So in this case, we have one bridge which is configured on OVS, and we start an instance of ovs-ofctl monitor, which connects to the management socket of that bridge and installs a monitor which is going to monitor all the changes that's happening in OVS. We start another instance of ovs-ofctl, which adds a flow to the flow table. The monitor detects this addition and sends an event back to the ovs-ofctl monitor instance with the event added. Now, there's a closely resembling command in ovs-ofctl called snoop. So this ovs-ofctl snoop instance connects to the bridge.snoop socket, but it's entirely different. The aim of the snoop is to get a copy of all the Openflow messages that is exchanged between the configured controller back to the snoop instance. Here are some of the examples that you can try to set different kind of monitors in OVS using the ovs-ofctl command. Some of the use case, one of the main use cases of this feature is that if you have a multiple controller environment, it enables a controller to be aware of what changes are being done by the other controller. And also sometimes it acts as an acknowledgement to the same controller. As I mentioned, we have, I've sent out a patch for the support of the standard Open 1.4 message, and you can test it using ovs-ofctl Openflow flag. Thank you.
All right, let's thank our speaker.